Blood-soaked evidence, hidden codes, bodies in the sand. America's most chilling cold cases still haunt detectives, decades later. We crack open 3 infamous files that have dodged courtroom justice for too long tonight. The Zodiac, Long Island, and Colonial Parkway killers. Masterminds or lucky bastards? Let's find out. The Zodiac Killer struck fear into Northern California in the late 1960s. This shadowy figure haunted the Bay Area, leaving a trail of blood and mystery that confuses investigators to this day. Despite the horrors he imposed, courtroom justice has never been served, and the case remains one of America's darkest mysteries.
My partner and I turned around at that time and responded to the call. When we got there, there was already a marked police unit from Benicia, and one of our police sergeants was on scene at that time.
It began on December 20th, 1968. A young couple, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were gunned down on a lover's lane in Benicia. Little did anyone know, this was just the start of a killing spree that would grip the nation.
Talk to us. Just tell us what's going on inside you right now, Sam, please.
I have headache.
Right.
How long have you had those headaches, Sam? Been a long time?
Since I killed a kid.
Well, was it before December that you had the headaches?
Yes.
Were you in service that you might have had an injury in service? Did you ever fall out of a tree or downstairs? Were you ever unconscious?
I don't know.
You don't remember. Does aspirin do you any good?
No.
Doesn't do any good.
Sam,
That stuff never did really good either when I had headaches.
Sam, let me ask you a question. Did you attempt to call this program one other time when Mr. Belli was with us? And you
What?
Did you try to call us one other time, about two or 3 weeks ago when Mel Belli was with us?
Yes.
And you, and we
couldn't get through?
couldn't get through, the phones were tied up, was that it?
Yes.
Sam, let me ask you this. There's some reason why you go to a particular doctor or a particular priest, and some reason why apparently you wanted to talk to me or Lee. Is it that you feel that we have compassion for people who get in trouble? Or is it you feel that we can do something for you? Or is it you feel that we have enough integrity that if we promise you something, that we're going to stick to it?
Well, let's find out why he wanted to talk to. Why did you want to talk to Mr. Belli, Sam?
I don't want to be hurt.
He told me, he says, follow the ambulance down and see if you can get any information, you know. That's where I found out about the ring. I noticed he had it like this, holding it like that, holding it like somebody was trying to take it from him.
Over the next year, the killer struck again and again. Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs Park, Lake Berryessa, each location became a crime scene. The Zodiac seemed to enjoy the terror he caused, taunting police and the public with strange letters sent to local newspapers.
Where the female victim was laying, there was expended casings from a .22, and there was also casings, I believe, on the right side of the vehicle. There was one round that was fired through the right rear window, and we tried to figure out, was that a warning shot to get the victims out of the car, but I don't think that was ever decided.
These weren't just any letters. They contained encrypted messages, complex codes that challenged readers to disclose their secrets. One boasted, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The killer's sick game had begun. But who was this twisted individual? The police had their work cut out for them. Eyewitness accounts were scarce and offered help. A stocky man with glasses, a slim figure in a hood, the descriptions varied, leaving investigators grabbing at straws.
A 50-year-old mystery was recently solved when a group of intellectuals decoded a message from the Zodiac Killer.
The body count rose, and so did public panic. The Zodiac claimed to have killed 37 people, though only 7 victims were confirmed. Each attack seemed random, making predicting where he'd hit next nearly impossible.
Lake Tahoe, possible Zodiac victim, September 6, 1970. A postcard attributed to the Zodiac featured an advertisement for a condominium project in Lake Tahoe, Nevada.
The case drew in inexperienced investigators and seasoned detectives alike. Theories churned. Was it Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester who owned the same brand of boots as the killer? Or perhaps Rick Marshall, a film buff with a dark side? The suspects piled up, but hard evidence remained unavailable.
Police are convinced it's authentic. Deputy San Francisco Police Chief Clem D'Amica said it's the 16th letter received from the Zodiac Killer and the first since 1974. Letter number 16 has breathed new life into the investigation of at least 6 murders blamed on the Zodiac. Old files will be reviewed again.
One of the most mesmerizing clues came from a blood-stained piece of Paul Stein's shirt. Stein, a taxi driver, was the Zodiac's last confirmed victim. The killer had torn off a piece of the sweater and mailed it with one of his letters. It was a trophy, proving the letter writer and the killer were identical.
The Case Breakers, a group whose website claims to be made up of retired law enforcement and military members, claims to have cracked the code in letters the Zodiac Killer wrote, identifying the killer as Gary Francis Post, who lived and worked as a painter in Groveland but died in 2018. The group alleges the man is responsible for the murder of Sherry Jo Bates. In 1967, Riverside Police received a handwritten letter that led investigators to believe the murder was connected to the Zodiac, but in 2016, investigators received an anonymous letter from a person admitting what was written was a sick joke. Today, Riverside Police are still investigating Bates' murder, but are not connecting it to the Zodiac Killer. Meantime, police in Vallejo sent CBS 13 this statement regarding their Zodiac Killer case, the 1967 murders of Michael McGow and Darlene Farron, telling us the case remains under investigation. They add they are unable to confirm or deny the validity of the reports. Jim Jacks has spent his career on the Zodiac Task Force.
Despite the wealth of physical evidence, fingerprints, handwriting samples, DNA, the Zodiac's true identity remained a mystery. The case went cold, but it never left the public consciousness. Decades passed, and still, the questions are there. Who was this mysterious killer? What drove him to commit such acts? And perhaps most importantly, is he still out there? Recent advances in DNA technology have breathed new life into the investigation. Cold case detectives continue to pore over old evidence, hoping for a breakthrough. Amateur sleuths share theories online, each convinced they've cracked the code. As we move on to our next case, remember that the truth is that courtroom justice is yet to be served.
The young lady was reported missing, Shannon Gilbert. The missing persons unit had been involved in trying to locate this young lady, find out what happened to her. We found human remains.
The Long Island case started back in 2010, when police were searching for a missing woman named Shannon Gilbert. Little did they know, this search would expose something far more sinister.
An unidentified serial killer is believed to have killed 10 to 17 sex workers. He has been nicknamed the Long Island Serial Killer due to his operation in remote Long Island beach towns. But who is the Long Island Serial Killer? Here are some theories. FBI profile: white, middle-aged, male, likely educated, financially secure. Theory 1. The killer has close ties to law enforcement, which could explain why he has evaded capture. Some believe it is a prominent local businessman. Theory 2. At least 2 people are involved. As one Reddit sleuth noted, you can't leave a vehicle stopped on the side of Ocean Parkway at any time of day or night long enough to dispose of a body. Theory 3. He isn't finished. He simply changed his dumping ground. Theory 4. He is behind bars for another crime. This accounts for why there haven't been any recent findings since the multiple bodies found in March 2011.
The cops combed through the thick brush along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. They stumbled upon a harsh discovery, not Shannon, but the remains of another woman. And that was just the beginning. Over the next few months, more and more bodies turned up.
Rex Heuermann, the man prosecutors say is the Gilgo Beach serial killer, now faces charges in the murders of 2 more women, Sandro Castilla and Jessica Taylor.
By spring 2011, the count had risen to 10 sets of remains. The Gilgo Beach killer had been busy, and the area was now a mass graveyard.
Releasing video never seen by the public of the lobby of the Holiday Inn Express in Hauppauge on June 4th and 6th, 2010, seen in a yellow top of Megan Waterman in her final hours.
We believe she did leave the hotel that night to meet her killer. We hope that anyone who may have been in the area that night or may have seen any of the individuals depicted in these videos will reach out to our Crime Stoppers hotline.
Police say they hope to jog memories, and they're doubling the reward for information to $50,000. Waterman was one of 6 sex workers killed, found along with the remains of 5 other people.
The victims shared some things in common. Most were young women who'd worked as guardians, advertising their services online. The killer seemed to target those who might not be missed right away. He'd wrap some bodies in burlap sacks before dumping them in the dense vegetation by the beach. It was clear this wasn't just a one-off crime, but the work of a serial killer who'd been active for years.
Hey, this is Rex. Just like this voicemail obtained exclusively by Eyewitness News. I had a question for you.
Due to the spreading of the news, the community was in fear. Who was this monster preying on weak women? The police had their work cut out for them. The crime scenes were challenging, exposed to the elements, with evidence degraded by time and nature, and the victims' lifestyles made it hard to trace their last movements or contacts.
Heuermann was arrested Thursday night.
Rex, did you do it?
And charged with the murders of 3 women, all sex workers. He is also the prime suspect in the murder of a 4th, which prosecutors feel confident they can tie him to. Their bodies were found within a quarter mile of each other near Gilgo Beach in late 2010.
Mr. Heuermann had a double life. I guess at nighttime he turned into this monster.
Police honed in on Heuermann in March 2022 after discovering he owned a truck and eyewitness connected to one of the disappearances. CBS News has confirmed investigators recovered a car linked to the suspect in South Carolina. Over time, they also found data from 7 burner phones used to contact victims, more than 200 internet searches about the Gilgo Beach investigation, and tied DNA found on a discarded pizza crust to hair found on one of the bodies. Police found the remains of 11 people in the area of Gilgo Beach, including a toddler. They are now looking at other unsolved crimes.
Police chased down leads and theories. Was the killer a local who knew the area well? Maybe someone with law enforcement connections who understood how to cover their tracks? Or could it be a trucker passing through, using the long stretches of highway to hunt for victims? Each possibility opened up new avenues to investigate and new dead ends.
Say they found over 200 guns in a vault in the basement of accused serial killer Rex Heuermann's Long Island home, and are executing search warrants at multiple nearby storage facilities looking for more evidence or trophies from his alleged victims.
Years passed, and the case went cold. Families of the victims were left without answers or justice. But then, surprisingly, things heated up again in 2022. Police released new info about a possible suspect vehicle, a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. This was the first real clue the public had seen in ages.
Rex Heuermann. I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island. Okay. Been working in Manhattan since 1987. And it's actually a cabinet maker's hammer.
work is not done here, but this is a major step forward.
My reaction is, this is nuts. It's really, really crazy. You never know, you never know who your neighbors are, right?
The breakthrough everyone had been waiting for came in July 2023. After all this time, police arrested a suspect, Rex Heuermann, an architect living in Long Island. They say DNA evidence and cell phone records link him to at least 3 of the murders. It was a bombshell development that rocked the community. The case against Heuermann builds. Investigators are digging into his past. They're searching his home and properties, looking for any evidence that might connect him to more victims. The families of those lost women are watching closely, hoping that, at long last, they might get some closure. Now that the legal process has proceeded, many hope the whole truth will finally come to light, ending this dark chapter in Long Island's history.
Now, Virginia State Police say Wilner Sr. passed away in 2017. This is the house neighbors say he lived in Lancaster, Virginia.
Alan was a very peaceful person, as far as I could see.
The most mysterious series of crimes shook Virginia in the late 1980s. It happened on a scenic 23-mile stretch of the Colonial Parkway, winding through historic sites and lush forests. People go there for peaceful drives and to enjoy nature. But for 4 young couples, this beautiful parkway became the backdrop for a nightmare.
35 years ago Monday, Cassandra Haley and Keith Call were last seen here at the University Square Apartments near CMU.
He was seen leaving the party, from what I understand, but we never knew what happened to him after that.
Sadly, after 35 years, not much more is known.
Frustrating is an understatement.
Can you imagine? Well, the Calls can. They're living it. We do know Keith's 1982 Toyota Celica was found on the Colonial Parkway. National Park Rangers blamed for contaminating a crime scene by moving the car and removing personal belongings from inside, thinking the car had been abandoned instead of possibly intercepted and dumped on the parkway by a suspect.
It happened in October 1986. Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Dowski were found in their car, which had been pushed down an embankment. They'd been strangled and their throats cut. This brutal crime was just the beginning.
The Calls want the FBI to turn over at least some of their collected evidence from the case to the Othram Lab in Woodlands, Texas.
Fast forward to September 1987. David Knobling and Robin Edwards vanished from a riverside park. Their bodies turned up days later, shot to death. The community was on edge, wondering if these killings were connected.
Police found 20-year-old David Knobling's black pickup truck at the Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge. He was missing, and so was his friend, 14-year-old Robin Edwards. Their bodies would be found 3 days later on a James River beach. Tonight, beginning at 4, Andy Fox, who was with David's father, Carl Knobling, after he found his son's body, looks back at the crimes, what happened, and why, after 30 years, no one has been arrested.
Robin got shot first. David said, made a run for it, got shot in the shoulder, knocked him down.
You could only accept so much
April 1988 brought more horror. Richard Call and Cassandra Haley disappeared after a first date. Their car was found on the parkway, but their bodies were never recovered. The pattern was becoming clear. Young couples were being targeted.
The Colonial Parkway murders were the slayings of at least 8 people apparently by a serial killer along the Colonial Parkway of the U.S. Commonwealth of Virginia between 1986 and 1989.
The final known attack came in October 1989. Daniel Lauer and Anna Maria Phelps vanished while traveling to Virginia Beach. Their remains were found weeks later in the woods. These crimes had some things in common. All the victims were young couples. Their cars were found in secluded spots along or near the parkway. In each case, there were signs the killer had spent time with the victims before attacking. But there were differences too. The first victims were strangled, while later ones were shot. Some bodies were hidden, others left in plain sight. It made investigators wonder, Was this the work of one killer changing his methods? Or could there be multiple attackers? The cops tried everything they could to solve these crimes. They interviewed hundreds, chased down leads, and dug into the victims' backgrounds. But the parkway itself made things challenging. It's federal land, which meant different police agencies had to work together, sometimes confusing.
Investigators have named a deceased hunter and fisherman as a suspect in 3 unsolved murders that date back to the 1980s. Once cold cases, police now believe Alan Wilmer Sr. was responsible for the 1987 murders of David Knobling and Robin Edwards in Isle of Wight, and the 1989 murder of Teresa Lynn Spall Howe in Hampton.
Time passed, and theories piled up. Some thought the killer might be a cop or park ranger who knew the area well and could control the crime scenes. Others wondered if it could be a team of killers working together, and some believed some of the cases might not be connected at all.
The authorities say Wilmer Sr., who died in 2017 at the age of 63, was responsible for killing 20-year-old Knobling and 14-year-old Edwards in an Isle of Wight wildlife refuge area in 1987. The pair was found shot to death on the shoreline of Ragged Island. Edwards had been sexually assaulted. They say Wilmer also killed 29-year-old Howe in the city of Hampton in 1989. Her body was found at a construction site. She had been strangled to death and had been sexually assaulted as well.
Only those who have suffered the loss of a child in this way can truly understand the depth of your sorrow and the frustration over not knowing who was responsible for taking your loved one's life in such a violent and cruel way.
Both cases were once lumped into a series of unsolved crimes that spanned from 1986 to 1989, known as the Colonial Parkway murders. While investigators say there are similarities, there's no forensic evidence linking Wilmer to a double homicide that occurred on the Colonial Parkway and one that occurred in New Kent County. However, federal officials have not ruled out Wilmer's potential connection to other unsolved crimes. They say he went by the name Pokey and worked for years as a commercial fisherman and oysterman in the Northern Neck and Hampton Roads regions, and also owned a tree service and was an avid hunter.
These unsolved serial killer cases remind us of the lasting impact on victims' families and communities. Stay informed, and if you have any tips, report them to help achieve courtroom justice for those affected.